welcome to another great edition of Mississippi Stories. I'm your host, Marshall Ramsey, editor-at-large at Mississippi Today, and also do a few cartoons for him as well. Of course, you can check out all kinds of great coverage at MississippiToday.org, and that includes other great episodes of Mississippi Stories. And I think I said great enough because this is going to be a great show. I've got really three friends on, people that I've known for a long time that literally just made an incredible dream come true. Back in 1939, a little theater was built out in the suburbs of Jackson, the Fondren neighborhood called the Picks. It's hard to believe that Fondren was a suburb back then. It was way almost out in the country. But the little theater that could did go on for a few years. It did close, and it came back in the 60s as the Capri, which is, of course, what many people in Jackson know it as. The last time I saw the Capri was during TEDx Jackson in 2014, and it was literally a shell of its former self. There was nothing in it but grass and trees where we held TEDx Jackson. But at the time, I was speaking to David Pharr, and he said he had a dream for it, and he and his partner, Jason Watkins, have made that dream come true with the help of Robert St. John. And I've got all three of them here today to tell us a little bit about how this project came to be and where we're at with it. Congratulations to all three of you.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you.
Man, I did that in one breath too. Whew, I'm about to pass out. I'm not as good at that as I used to be. I guess I will start with David and Jason. Y'all grew up in Jackson. You grew up, and I moved here 25 years ago, and I remember what Fondren was 25 years ago, and about 15, 18 years ago or so, people started investing in the area and building, and little pieces started coming up. When did y'all wake up and say, you know what? I think it's time to bring back the heart of Fondren?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll start that off and then let David jump in. I moved back to Fondren after law school in 2000, and I wanted to come back to Jackson. I actually grew up in Madison, and really had fallen in love with. I went to school in Memphis and watched the Renaissance there in downtown and Midtown, and it was really excited about what I was seeing happening there. And then was in law school in Oxford, and just the charm of the city and the square area. And when I moved back to Jackson, I did not want to live in the suburbs. And I had learned that Fondren was kind of emerging with a renaissance. The community had gotten involved to kind of take charge and try to bring things back. And so that's where my wife and I at the time planted our flag, and really saw a high level of energy there that was just contagious. And as time went on, really felt like it had a vibe that needed to become an incredible vibe, but it needed to become something that was more an all the time presence. And so that's when the idea and the opportunity to purchase this property came to be in 2008 originally. But the vision was always that the area is ready to go and explode with what you're seeing now. And David joined in shortly after I did.
Yeah, David. What was? I was trying to remember. I know the Rogue was up in that area for a while, and I'm just trying to think about all the different businesses that were there in my memory. I think there's even a Bebop there at one point, wasn't there, in that area? But it really, when 2008. That little corner of Fondren, really, there wasn't a lot going on in it.
Yeah, this entire block was sort of sleepy. Of course, the Capri, was closed from 1986 forward and was just kind of a barn that the creative community, made good use of for pop-up events. But, I, like Jason, have great memories from childhood of, this place being very vibrant. And I was practicing law and really getting interested and caught up in the idea of participating directly in revitalization efforts and real estate development. And, so when he asked me, it took about 30 seconds to, try to figure out how I could do it. And, the history of that spot had not really sunk in with me when we initially decided to buy the building. But one thing that I did a couple of years into the project was actually occupy the space in the building as a little law office, which kind of transformed into a development office because I couldn't get much law practice done while people stopped by to talk about the development. What are you going to do with the building? One of those people was Billy Neville, who founded the road there. And so, it's just been a living history project as much as a real estate development project, which has really been exciting and fun.
Initially, I think y'all had even thought about turning that into a live music venue, didn't you? Which, and of course that was kind of tough because you had dueling down the street, which is very successful and was a great redevelopment of the elementary school there. Tell us a little bit how you decided to navigate away from maybe just in the early days of what you thought about developing and how you navigated and ended up having this third guy here who's sitting here with us, Robert St. John, join in.
Well, we always knew it would be tough to bring back a single screen movie theater, and even in the 10 years we've been working on the actual theater building, the theater business has changed quite a bit and gotten even more difficult to navigate. But right out of the gate, we knew that to do movies there, we would need a kitchen at least, because the dine-in concept was, at minimum an enhancement that had to be made to make that work. And there's very little room in that building for a kitchen. Michael Barranco, when the Fondren Renaissance Foundation owned the building, came up with a plan for a tiny kitchen there, but it really wouldn't have supported a full service restaurant concept. So we knew that if it was going to be a theater, it needed an expansion, either into the adjacent buildings or north in new construction. And, the only other real use for the building was either as a really interesting modified, retail concept or an event space. So we thought about that a good bit. And, the idea behind it was mainly to operate it as a community resource nonprofit and, make it available for promoters like Arden to add, another live show in Fondren and kind of create some more energy around live performance. But we just looked at every model we could think of to try to bring the building back to life. But eventually the restaurant idea, became kind of the lead concept. Bowling came into the picture at some point because it's just so hot and we have a shortage of bowling lanes in our market. But then we started
shoes,
thinking,
isn't it? Yeah, shoes,
right.
It's definitely the shoes.
But we certainly knew that nobody was going to let us run a restaurant, and that we had to have a partner. And so that's what eventually led us to really the primary turning point in the project, which was convincing Robert to join us and come along and make this real.
Hey, Robert, you've opened, I'm trying to think, you've opened well over 25 restaurants in your career. You've and it's funny, been watching it just over the years. You've always had great food, but it seems like you figured out somewhere along the way to create an event at all your restaurants. I love going to your restaurants because you get a sense of place. It engages all five of your senses, whether it's, the decor or whatever. What made you decide to break out of Hattiesburg and head back to Jackson? Because I think the last time you had anything here was Rodeos, wasn't it, back in the mid-90s?
Yeah. 93, we opened that place, which was a fun thing to be a part of in the early 90s, doing the whole, it was a 20,000 square foot country and western nightclub and a steakhouse. But so I think you and I have talked about this, and I get a lot of calls I've been in the business since 81 or 2. As an owner since 87, and I get a lot of calls from people who, say things like, man, we'd love to have your restaurant here in this town or at this place. And, you hear that over and over. And in the early days when I, first was in the restaurant business, or at least as an owner, it was an ego boost. It was like, oh, they want me here and this is awesome. And sometimes I'd, hop on board and sometimes I wouldn't. But what I learned pretty quickly, most times, not all, but most times, it's a real estate developer trying to, just get out of a problem with a poor real estate decision and, trying to find somebody to occupy a space. And so I go into those meetings, I don't know how many calls a year of those like those. I typically go in pretty cynical, and I think I got a call. I don't think it was David or Jason. I think maybe Michael Berner at Ware Berner Allen was the contact. And I had worked with them on Ed's Burger Joint down here and really admired them, became friends with, there's a really talented firm. And they were not only working on this project, but they were partners in it, and wanted me to come up and meet David and Jason. And, I kind of, okay, I will. And I think David and Jason and I spent a couple of hours talking about it up at the architecture office, walked on the property. And, it's one of those things, my cynicism turned to enthusiasm pretty much during that visit. And I knew on the way home to Hattiesburg that night, I said, I want to be a part of this. And it was mainly because of David and Jason and how passionate they really were about bringing that building back, bringing those buildings back, staying true to the vibe of the neighborhood. They were both creative. They were both, 100% bought in. It wasn't as much about, it was really, I need to revise. It was all about the real estate. It was all about those buildings and preserving that building and bringing those places back. And so, I was like, we're in, and I took on, a managing partner role, and we developed the menus, and we're running the place right now. We opened last week. Things are going.
Congratulations. How'd the opening go?
I told the guys that it's really of the openings. I've been a part of, I think it's actually 23 openings. And I'm going to tell you, opening a restaurant is one of the most stressful things you'll ever go through. There's so many moving parts. It's really tough. And this one was at least the smoothest of all those 23. I mean, we still have some things to work out, and you're always making decisions on the fly, and sometimes what works on paper doesn't necessarily work in practice. And so all that comes, but as far as those things go, it's been really smooth. And I've been really happy. We were challenged with trying to staff that place really in the middle of a global pandemic and a tough market, but between Thanksgiving and Christmas, which is almost impossible. That nobody wants to leave a job during Thanksgiving and Christmas. But we put together a good staff. The kitchen staff is solid. Really happy with that. The two on-site managers are Sarah and Justin Ferguson, who both, they met at the Purple Parrot probably 16 years ago when they worked for me. He was in the kitchen, sous chef, and she was a server and then a manager, and they both went into management. They married while they were working for me, worked for several more years, and then moved to New Orleans. But we always stayed in touch, and we're always admiring what they did, and they did really great. She went to work for Donald Link, several of his restaurants down there. Justin worked for Jason Goodenough, and then worked with a startup. And when we came to look for management at that place, I mean, they were the obvious choice, and they enthusiastically, she's from Jackson, so we brought them back. So we have two really good managers on site.
David, Jason, I mean, you look at from 2008 to today, all the headwinds that y'all have experienced. And I mean, Jason, I know you kind of grew up in a family. Your dad has developed so many different properties. He's had some successes. He's had some others that didn't. I mean, so y'all knew the risks and everything, but you had 2008, the economy, the wheels came off of it then. And then, right as you really get into construction phase on this and get going, we end up, like you said, in the global pandemic where we couldn't even, leave the house for a few months there. It was kind of like nobody was going out to eat. Restaurateurs were in trouble. We didn't know, would we ever get back to normal? But it seems like that y'all managed to continue to press on a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what that was like, having that stress on you for a better part of a decade, and yet y'all stuck the landing. I mean, all the properties, and Robert, going back to the architectural part of this, the way that this whole thing is going to, especially when Ed's is finished in the old Texaco station, it's going to totally make that area look like it did back in the 50s and 60s. It's just an incredibly beautiful project that y'all worked on.
Yeah, it's one of the things I really wanted to be a part of, because they wanted to stay true to the neighborhood and they wanted to keep that vibe. And I know all of the neighbors we have wanted that to happen as well. And David and Jason weren't going to do it without doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marshall, kind of go into what you were, the earlier part of what you were saying. There are kind of two blocks of resistance that we've had getting to where we are. The first is just we actually bought in the recession. So we knew it was going to be ice for a while, but just the general resistance to the project that we had based on trying to find the right design of the buildings, the utility of the buildings, and mix in with the historical character. I think we worked well with the community to find something good that would respect that history. So that was kind of initial threshold, but part of that kind of pre-development stage was just fighting the headwinds, as you said, about developing in Jackson a kind of unique project. Not a chain, not something traditional at all. So you've got financing hurdles to achieve. But one of the biggest things I did personally, kids don't try this at home, was it's kind of the myth of Cortez burning his ships. I realized at some point that this project could never get anywhere with David and I practicing law full time and sticking our foot in here and there. So I left my law practice and basically made development my full-time job. And then David somewhat followed suit later. So there were a lot of hardships on the family for a long time. And we're both still married, thank goodness. So that worked out. But we finally kind of got to that through the first phase of all this, where we got Robert on board and got the momentum for our project, found investors who were interested. We found some unique financing components to really make the project work. And then comes the pandemic, which we all know about, which and credit to some of our financial partners who really said pandemic be damned, and stepped up where some more money was needed, and despite the risk, and said, let's roll the dice. So here we are now, and I think when you put all that stuff in the rearview mirror, it just seems easy, right?
Yeah. So if for no other reason, the Capri and Highball Lanes is responsible for taking 2 more lawyers out of the system.
Nobody misses us.
I think one of the things that y'all did right off the bat was, you applied for historical status. You ended up, which helped you qualify for the Mississippi Tourism Incentive Program. That's really helped too. Explain a little bit about that. On David, I know some of the financing that you were able to do for this really helped get this off the ground and made it possible.
Well, you got to start with credit to the Department of Archives and History and the Historic Trust for, being kind of the caretaker during the fallow period. The Capri itself is a Mississippi landmark, which actually restricts, what can be done to the building, protects it to some degree. And so we knew that the renovation project there would depend on historic tax credit financing, which was really kind of made the difference for the whole project. But along the way, Jason and I realized that to maximize that opportunity, we would need to make the investment in having the entire downtown Fondren area listed on the National Register of Historic Places, which gave us access to that kind of financing for the adjacent buildings, all three of our buildings were built in 1939. All three of the buildings that we've renovated so far. So that was kind of a coincidence, but it was a great process. And then the tourism rebate program, tourism incentive program that the state has had in place for a while had a special provision in it for restoring a theater in a neighborhood in an area listed on the National Register. So that was
well, there you go.
Fortuitous, right? We promised we didn't get that bill passed. It was probably a base inspired by a theater in a small town, but that was extremely helpful as well. And there were a few other more local incentive pieces that came together to make it possible. But that we've had a lot of support. That there's been a lot of kind of negative resistance from people who didn't think it could be done, but there's been just as much support from people who have always understood Fondren's potential and know how important it is to the overall effort to revitalize Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, one of my takes on the whole thing was I thought that anything like that you can bring into Fondren just raises every single boat in Fondren. I mean, we saw that with dueling. We've seen that with, when they redeveloped Rainbow, that area. I mean, it's all been helpful. Let me talk a little bit about how y'all came up with the ideas. Number one, Robert, I've known you for a long time. Two things I know about you: you love movies and you love food, but you love movies and music about as much as anything. I mean, I think about the F's, was it the 5 F's that you talk about? I don't think film's one of them, but it's pretty darn close. Cause I mean, when y'all are thinking about putting in a movie theater, how do you find out how to put in a movie theater, what equipment or everything else? Are there consultants out there that you call up and say, hey, I need some help here? And tell me about, if you did get a consultant, a little bit about the guy that you got.
So David and Jason were really on board with bringing back the Capri as a movie theater almost from the start. And I think there was a point in time, at least when I came in, that they were considering, as you said earlier, the live music hall.
Yeah.
And when I looked at it, I was like, man, I'm not interested in that. If I'm going to do this, we need to make this movie theater. And I think they were both like, yes, that's what we want to do. So it took no convincing of them whatsoever. I think they knew that as the best use, but these guys, so I'm as you know, Marshall, I do a ton of movies and go to a lot of movies, but that's akin to the person that goes to a lot of restaurants to eat and thinks they know how to open a restaurant.
Right.
So
yeah.
I go to a lot of films, an embarrassingly large amount, but I know that I know nothing about running a theater. Actually, these two guys on the call know way more than me. I'm learning right now, and within a couple of weeks, I'll be up to snuff. But especially David has really, I mean, David knows how to run that projector now and everything. And so, a lot of that was done when I came on, but I can't tell you how excited I am to be a owner.
Yeah.
Of a movie theater. It's one of those things that, I probably dreamed of as a kid, but just one of those that I never thought would really happen. So
yeah. How many restaurant, bowling alley movie theaters are there across the United States?
I'm not sure. There may be a couple, but there aren't any that are serving the quality food and drinks that we are.
There you go.
That's what I was going to say. More than you would think.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant combination, though. It's great, and of course, Ed's is going to be next door in the old Texaco. Have y'all run into some supply issues with? Because I put a screened-in porch, and it took me like 8 months to get it done. And the cost kept going up and everything else. Have y'all had some construction delays on Ed's? I can't wait. I love Ed's in Hattiesburg. It's a must stop every time I'm on my way down to the coast. So. Tell us a little bit about Ed's.
Well, I'll answer the first part and the concept. I'll let Robert talk about, but we were fortunate on the Highball Lanes that we were able to, and the Capri, that we were able to lock in our prices at the early part of the pandemic.
Yeah,
we really just escaped. I wouldn't say disaster there, but real discomfort in our pricing by locking in the base costs. We have not been so lucky with Ed's, just because we wanted to bring that project along to kind of get our feet on the ground with Highball and the Capri, and then it just construction prices have gone up just a shocking amount. And so we're really working through some of that with Ed's to get the right size and whatever we do next door, just to be, it has to make money, and it has to we have to be able to justify the expense. So we're just kind of taking our time to get that right. But I expect us to do something there pretty soon. And of course, Robert can speak more to that.
Yeah. Robert, like I said, we'll touch on just 2 secs. I was just looking at the background. You're talking about Highball Lanes, and just looking in the background behind David. It just turned out absolutely gorgeous. I know there's a lot of, number one, you get this Art Deco look of the building anyway that you're having to work with, but that's a lot nicer than the bowling alleys that I grew up with. I will just say that. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, these two guys, they may be lawyers by trade, but they're true developers. But there's an artistic bent to them, and they're very creative. You see the William Goodman mural behind David, and that was something that it's one of those things. Once things get up and things get built, you realize different spaces that you maybe weren't focusing on. And we all of a sudden realized we had this long gray wall. And I think it's David that pushed to get Goodman involved. He did a whole series of things for me in the Purple Parrot several years ago. And it's one of those things I probably wouldn't even brought up. I was like, I was certainly a big fan of his work. But David, if I remember right, Jason, I think David's the one that said, we need to get Goodman involved in this. And it's maybe the feature piece in the whole thing. It's great. And, David could probably talk you through the Fondren history on that wall, but there's a lot of history that I learned about. He's our resident historian.
Yeah, I absolutely correct. David was totally behind the Goodman piece, and it would not be the same without that. But David, talk about it.
Well, of course, William has had a studio in Fondren since the early days of the Renaissance here, and has done some iconic murals. I think he did the first mural on the patio at Walker's. And, there's one at the Museum of Art that is just amazing. So he was an easy choice for somebody to do something on that wall. But none of these values were hatched, from our imagination necessarily. We didn't have to invent the wheel. There are a lot of cool places around the country, but we did, find some we liked and drew inspiration from them. I think the main thing that Jason and I wanted to avoid was the traditional bowling alley that has been, just kind of making it through the 80s and 90s by slapping stickers up on the wall of bowling pins and bowling balls, and just that kind of Chuck E. Cheese look, and so so it's always been, well, I guess since we got a basic plan for the building, that wall has been a little source of worry for us that at some point we would just decide to put some cheesy graphic on it, and so it's always seemed like a canvas. But as we got closer, started talking to William about what he might do there, we really saw it as a place to put kind of our signature visual for the whole property. So he did pull in some images from the history of the neighborhood. The first one is the original strip, and you can see some of those buildings were torn down before these buildings were put here in 1939. One is the last cash and carry Jitney Jungle location, which is their last store that didn't have a parking lot, and the last one before they moved to their first parking lot store down the street at Woodland Hills Shopping Center. So that's pretty significant. Isham Cade is there. He was a property owner back in the asylum days, former slave who built a really successful farm on the site of Fondren. The roadway next to the corner market, the former jitney, was called Cade's Alley. So that is a throwback there. The original Fondren family sitting on the steps of their house that was located in the neighborhood. We've got graphics that from logos that the Capri used over the years. The Bowl-O-Rama is represented there. That was a 32-lane bowling center at the end of Meadowbrook Road in Fondren. It's now a warehouse. The building still exists, but it was owned by the same guy that owned the Capri in the 60s and for years after, Ad Orkin. So we're kind of reconnecting Fondren bowling and movies here. So that was a reference to that. We've got Stella Stevens, a movie star who's from Mississippi, and then a few other, historic bowling images and things that kind of, The Premonition was a horror movie filmed in Jackson that actually premiered at the Capri with the director and all the actors. And so Ward Emling was a star of the movie and kept that poster in his office and gave it to us when we got a lot of momentum toward the redevelopment. And then we've got an image of Elvis from Blue Hawaii to reference the Tiki Bar. I'm sure I'm forgetting something cool, but it's just the effect of it in black and white is just dramatic. It's on plywood panels, but it looks like a mural the way it's mounted, 56 feet long. It's brilliant. Just it really came together. And of course, it's where everyone wants to take the Instagram selfie, with that in the background when they come in. So it's really turned out to be a great feature.
Robert, you just came off of, a very successful book tour and very successful documentary that you worked with Anthony Thaxton. Now you've been promoting the opening of this. Are you bottling and selling the energy that you can somehow produce? Because I don't know how you do it. I literally follow you on Facebook and I have to go take a nap after I read all you, because next thing you know, you're going to be in Italy. And it's just, you're just on the move all the time. Talk about that a little bit. What gets you up in the morning to obviously you're excited about the project, but how do you keep pushing? Because it's admirable.
Well, Marshall, the old gray mare ain't what she used to be. I'm really, it's just, I don't know.
Well, his internet kind of went down on him there a little bit. He'll pop up in a second.
He finally ran out of energy.
He did. It's amazing. Don't brag on that dog until it's a little bit. I know, David and Jason, you guys have to feel like literally a proud papa at the end of the day, a little bit. At what point did you like, yeah, we got this. It's going to happen. It's going to be done.
Probably somewhere between those first few weeks we opened and then start seeing people. The first night we were open for a strong soft opening, when you saw the people in and the way the space worked together, and we kind of had our fingers crossed that it would work out like we thought. But
yeah,
it's just the high energy and the vibe we kind of always hoped for. It was just such a relief to see it match what there's just no disappointment at all.
Mm-hmm. And we're still waiting for the last piece to open. The Pearl has not officially opened yet. So I'm holding back a little of that, excitement and relief.
I love the concept of a tiki bar to begin with. I love the name of the Pearl because you've got a really great South Seas vibe, and also, the Pearl, just the Pearl River too. So it's kind of a nice play on that too. Robert, it's good to have you back. I'm glad. I'm sitting here bragging on your energy and you just like conk out on us. So I was like, oh crap, he's dead. That's not good.
I have a ton of energy. My computer has not as much energy as I do. So it took this exact moment to restart. My battery's at 77%, so I'm not sure. Sorry about that, but
no problem.
But the thing is, it's passion, really, and I'm just blessed to be doing what I love to do. I love the restaurant business. I love the service business. Any project I'm involved with these days. I have creative control, which, as is
huge.
It's key. And so really, I'm just having fun. This is my fun. My mom asks me every once in a while, when are you going to retire? When are you going to retire? So Mom, I'm never going to retire. Why would I retire? What am I going to do? I don't hunt. I don't fish. I don't play golf. Restaurants are my hobby. And, I've got some other side projects, like you mentioned, with, the documentary and the books and the travel, but, I'm having a blast. And so, it's 60. I can't go quite like I do, but I was just born with a lot of energy. I think I was 50 years old. You're not going to believe this, but it's a true story, and Jill will confirm it. I remember I was around 50 and I got in bed one night and I said, I think I'm tired. I think this is what tired feels like. I'd gone 50 years without feeling everywhere. I get it every once in a while now, but I love creating. I love working with people. These two partners right here, and Jared Patterson, who is really the managing partner, COO of our company down here in Hattiesburg. And he's up in Jackson every day. Yes, I can't be there today. We've got stuff going on down here, but we do what we love to do. I love working with other people, and I like the restaurant biz.
Yeah, I got to tell everybody, I did a book tour with you back right before Hurricane Katrina, and actually, because and I'm always will be grateful for this, that you and I got to go down, be on the Gulf Coast, literally right before the storm hit. So we got to enjoy the Gulf Coast back before then. But I absolutely loved going on a book tour with you. And I gained 30 pounds because where every great restaurant is in the state of Mississippi. And by God, we ate there. It was great. So that was so much fun. Well, I mean, obviously you're up and running, you've got to get Ed's up and running, but like I said, I have a hard time believing anybody ever doubted this project other than maybe the financing part of it. But it seemed like y'all got that locked in pretty early too, because I mean, there is no movie theater in Jackson. There is no bowling alley in Jackson. Oh wait, there is a movie theater now in Jackson. There is a bowling alley, and you're bringing two more great restaurants into the area too. So it sounds like it's a win all the way around. I'm just grateful that y'all came on with me today. And obviously I have not hit everything. What is it that I'm missing right now? Because I mean, I've just been really thrilled because it seems like y'all have gotten great press coverage on this and everything, but I just love seeing a little piece of Jackson history come back and be alive again.
I'll tell you what I'm excited about. I'm really fired up, and it didn't hit me until we did a little trial run Saturday night at the Capri. And I asked Jason, I thought it was 12 years, and I asked Jason right before I made a little announcement before we ran the movie. And he said, no, it's been 14 years. And so in that moment, I was so excited for David and Jason, because if you think about the steadfastness and the passion and the stick-to-itiveness that is needed to push something this big with this many moving parts forward over a period of 14 years, bringing in different components all along the way. I mean, you have to believe in what you're doing, and you have to believe in the cause. And these two guys have been that way from the very start. And it really came home right then. And I'm not only honored to be a part of this, and I'm having a blast. We're having fun. We have the absolute best restaurant you're ever going to eat in a bowling alley. It's actually a restaurant with a bowling alley, not a bowling alley with a restaurant. This tiki bar is very unique. The food and cocktails, the gumbo, I want to tell you, the gumbo that Justin Ferguson brought up from New Orleans is better than the gumbo. I'm gonna bring it down to Crescent City Grill. It's as good as the top 3 gumbos in New Orleans. Really, really is. It blew me away. But it happened for these guys. It's made me appreciate them and their passion and what they've been through really for a decade and a half.
Jason, when I met you, you didn't have any of that gray hair in your hair. So,
no, I'm going blonde.
You're going blonde? Okay, don't. Just stay the way, because trust me, it's overrated on the blonde thing. David, you look the same. You don't change. You must drink formaldehyde or something. You're pretty much the same guy. But I
better
just
to gray than to lose.
Robert,
my hairline is.
You look exactly the same, Robert, the way I drew you back in the book in 2005. You haven't changed a bit.
Not very flattering.
Well, that's, but sorry, man. That was, I was trying to figure a way out of that and I couldn't. seriously though, like I said, David, I remember standing in the middle of the theater right before TEDxO and you talking about your dream for everything. And it's thrilled. And one of the things I don't think a lot of people realize, y'all have the parking back behind there. Y'all actually have land behind there too. So you're able to develop that. And you have guards and everything for people if they're worried about their safety, so that they can come and park safely. So, because a lot of people think in Fondren, well, where would I park? But you've got all that area back behind there too. Is there any other development that y'all are looking at in the area? I mean, obviously that's kind of you're probably like, well, you nuts, look what we just did. But is there anything else, or are you just happy with what you got and going to get it going?
Yeah, we definitely want to keep pushing on, and we don't have really details we want to talk about now, but we do have a parking facility in the works for behind our building, and we're working with some apartment developers on some to do something interesting back there to try to bring some more residents, and so that's kind of the next phase we see, in addition to the restaurant next to us. So we really envision that whole block becoming very efficient and dense, but really very walkable. Fondren's a walkable neighborhood, but we want to see people being able to go from restaurant to restaurant and just kind of spilling out. And if I could actually take this isn't really what you asked, but a point of pleasure for me is I texted one of our tenants, the Barrel House owner, on Sunday just to see how their business was going with ours opening, and he said that Saturday was his second best night since COVID started.
Wonderful. Yeah.
That is just such a validation for what we think can be achieved in Fondren when we kind of build this up, that we all just feed off each other, and the rising tide floats all ships idea.
Yeah, I remember coming down to Fondren at 5 and just loving, the energy that's going on down there. And you're right. I think, but by y'all doing that, it's like literally a bright light that's going to attract people. And, we talk so much about brain drain in Mississippi. And, I think a lot of times, and I've got a 21-year-old, well, actually, David, Jason, you and I have all about the same age kids, and Robert's, yours are just a little bit ahead of that. But I mean, when I talk to my kids about why they would want to stay in Mississippi, they're looking for fun things to do. They're looking for opportunity and everything else. And by creating things that's just fun in downtown areas in all across the state, that's the way you help conquer brain drain.
Absolutely.
There's no question about that. One thing, just kind of looping back in on the site question, the parking question.
Yeah.
One thing we realized early on is that this was a huge parking resource for the neighborhood, because it's a movie theater, and you need a big parking lot for a movie theater typically. And so a lot of people, look to this lot that was fallow and quiet for decades as the parking solution for Fondren. So, we're trying to bring that into a new era where, you don't necessarily think of parking as just a surface lot, and add maybe some new density with this piece of property that we have that would, both solve the parking problem and make the neighborhood more walkable. But it really is just incredibly important to Jackson to, continue to find these places that have the potential to be more vibrant, and just keep working to make them, to make them more relevant to visitors and people around the metro.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. In addition to what Jason mentioned is coming in, and what we're going to do next door in the old gas station there's also a hotel about to crank up between us and Pig and Pint. And so it's there's a little bit of a second phase of this renaissance really happening. And there's one, and I do this a lot when I open a new place. I started about 10 years ago, and I'll kind of position myself at a point where I can see people walking in for the first time and just watch and look at their reactions. And I've done that a few times over the course of the last week when we first opened, and it's the most gratifying thing to just kind of watch people when they walk in, and the big smiles that they get. And it's just people, people come up and say, thank you for doing this. And you've kind of done something right when you hear that kind of thing. And I agree. It's something that Shirley Jackson needed. It's something that we're having a blast with. Yeah. And there's more to come. It's going to get even better. Hang in there.
Yeah, y'all really have created something that seems to engage all the senses. You just walk in and it's absolutely gorgeous. So, yeah, great job on that as well. And Robert, you're right about, and that's one thing I always love about Ed's down in Hattiesburg. I mean, I love all your restaurants, but I mean, it's just fun. It's fun to go in there, and I can sit there and watch the cat videos all day long, because that just shows you about, what level I'm at in there. So at Ed's, it's really good stuff. Trying to think of anything else I need to touch on. Like I said, I'm just thrilled because, like I said, I personally know y'all. I'm thrilled for you on a personal level that y'all made this happen, because it did seem like it was a huge hurdle back in the day when you first announced this. And not only have you cleared the hurdles, I was going to ask you too, when you're talking about the hotels that are going in there, who's staying in those hotels? Is that from being driven by the medical center, or what traffic is coming in with those?
Well, so our understanding is there is one hotel. It's an extended stay Homewood Suites. It's already in place, and that is, it's an interesting. Our understanding from the owner is it's about 98% occupied, which is really fantastic. And it's during the week. It is, I think, a lot of hotel activity. Hospital activity.
Yeah.
Reported. Interestingly, on the weekends, it is a lot of people coming to Jackson who live in the suburbs, just staying there to enjoy the nightlife.
Yeah.
That's our understanding of people who don't want to drive back out the suburbs and want to be able to kind of do it all in one night. So that's a really interesting phenomenon.
Staycation.
Yeah, we hadn't expected that to happen yet. The same developer of that hotel is developing the other location that Robert referenced earlier, and really did not intend to do that until the numbers were so good at his Homewood. I think that they just see it as a no-brainer that to be able to fill that up, probably with a similar crowd, but maybe more of a touristy crowd, if I had to guess.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, just think, you can come down, you can go see a live show, you can go see a movie, you can go bowling, you can eat at several different restaurants. That's a pretty good way to spend a weekend.
Yeah. I mean, at one point in the spring and summer, there were about 4 feature films being made around the metro, and all of those crews stayed at that hotel. They wanted to be close to, the restaurants and everything that's going on in Fondren. So it's a good idea.
Yeah, look, I appreciate y'all jumping in today and doing this. Like I said, I mean, the Pearl's fantastic. I can't wait to check it out. The restaurant, gosh, just getting to go bowling and then actually eat a good meal would be pretty cool. And having Spider-Man as your first movie too is a pretty darn good way to start off. I think that was a good omen to have the 6th biggest movie of all time hit during a pandemic, that actually people want to go see at a movie theater. That worked out pretty well too. So congratulations. It's been a home run all the way around. I'm just thrilled for all 3 of you. Well,
bring Amy and the kids, and we'll have some fun.
We'll do that. It'd be good to see you too. I have to get you up here. Now, the problem is you having to go from Hattiesburg to here. They keep adding traffic lights every 5 minutes. And then, of course, I think I may be wrong, but I think Richland's still under construction. So
no,
that's why you're not here.
They ran out of money because they spent them on all those orange barrels. There's no money left. Everything went to orange barrels.
Oh, I thought that's where orange barrels just came to breed. I didn't realize that. I thought they came from around the world. Yeah, I think the pyramids were built faster than that, but that's okay. It'll be nice when my grandkids can drive on it. So
Marshall, you've got to help us think about the theme for the next TEDx at the Capri. We did Fertile Ground in 2014, so we need to come up with something good for.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, did you leave
2022?
Did you leave?
Oh yeah, Yeah, we did completely restored the old stage. It's tiny, but it's plenty big for a speaker.
I would do something on resilience. I really would, because I think that that's something that everybody right now is kind of figuring out in their own lives, whether it's a personal or professional, and what y'all have done with that area and developed that in the midst of a pandemic and everything. Yeah, that'd be the first. I would go listen to that. Listen to y'all talk about
that. Sounds perfect.
All righty. Well,
thank you.
Y'all take care. Thank you again.
Thanks, Marshall.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mississippi Stories. Make sure to subscribe to the Mississippi Today YouTube channel and click the bell to be notified every time a new video uploads.